So my relationship with midlife, getting older, accepting the fact that I'm moving into another chapter in life has always been very, very slow. I've hung on to youth and youthfulness for as long as I possibly can. And when I first met our next guest, Adam Quiney, he was part of a program I was in, and he was one of those young bucks in the program who was admirable and smart and really good at what he did. And me being one of the older guys, I still felt kind of relevant and felt like I could compete with the people who were younger than me. And that's something that I see a lot in the world now that I'm dealing with it myself. And I was reluctant to move into the next phase of my life, which is much more of a mentor phase, an older brother or father figure. And there was tension in my relationships with a lot of the people in my industry. For me, on my side, I don't know about their side, but my side, of who I am in these relationships, in whether competing and all that. And when I finally started to allow myself to age, so to speak, to be in my 50s and to start to see these young men and women as people that I could actually help along and share, that my relationships started to change and a love started to grow and a respect, a mutual respect that I didn't know existed. So my next guest, Adam Quiney, when he came into my life, he was probably one of the smartest people I ever met. And he was usually the smartest person in the room, which is so ironic because I'm going to read his introduction. I don't usually read people's introductions, but I'm going to read it because that's how I thought of him, as one of the smartest people in the room. What I've noticed about him and knowing him for years is he's grown in wisdom, in grace and wisdom, and gone from being just a smart guy to being a wise, grounded, and solid person. So this is why it's ironic. So Adam is an executive leadership coach specializing in working with the smartest people in the room, which is perfect. He's a former software developer and an attorney. Adam learned the hard way about the costs that come from keeping your heart safe and chasing after external rewards to feel whole and complete. He lives in Victoria, British Columbia with his beautiful wife, Bay, and I always say his dog's name wrong, Grimby, who's so cool, and a cat who has no name. But Adam, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Mark.
I wanted to do that long introduction because, as most things are, it's all about me and not about you. But I learned a lot from my relationship with you and Bay and James, our friend who passed, and a lot of the other wonderful people who were in our community. And as I was able to grow in grace and wisdom, I was able to see how you, in particular, which is why you're on the show, really went from being just a smart guy, good at what you do, to this really grounded, wise, and impactful person. And I wanted to talk about that journey, if you're okay with that.
Of course, 100%.
Totally surprised him with this, by the way. I didn't tell him what I wanted to talk about. And one of the things I thought were really cool is you did it publicly. Adam has a Facebook show and a podcast. The Facebook was called Tea Time with Adam at first. You have a new name for your podcast, right?
Well, the podcast is different, but I can't remember. I think we're calling it Coaching Live or something like that with the Facebook show.
With the Facebook, and then your podcast name is
Get Lit.
Get Lit, which is so cool because Adam is wholly cool, just a cool guy. So that's great. So what is your reaction to me talking about you as going from just a smart, cool guy to this mature, wise, impactful person? How's that feel to have that reflected back to you?
Feels very touching and really nice. And I've been writing lately as I notice my own journey unfold and the journey of the people I work with, the path, I'm noticing 3 distinct phases, and there'll probably be more after this, but at least the 3 that are currently live for me are: 1, head-based brilliance, which is kind of what you're describing, like super smart. And for some of my people, that's the first step. We got to even just own that we're smart instead of doing that thing that's kind of obnoxious. We're like, oh, I'm not smart. I see the brilliance in everyone around. No, just own that you're really smart, please, so we can stop dancing around it. The second phase, and then once they're doing that, the second phase is I see a shift from head-based brilliance to heart-based brilliance. So really At that phase, what tends to happen is starting to see the brilliance in everyone, and a relaxing of the story that like I'm surrounded by morons, or whatever someone's kind of reaction to I've got to be smart and everyone else is not there with me, whatever that conversation is, that starts to slip away. And then the third stage is what I would call soul-based brilliance, which I'm hearing you describe kind of as like grounded wisdom. So in that stage, there's really a falling away of needing to have things figured out, which is still really thinking. We're really good at thinking. And so that slips away, and there starts to be this deep, abiding trust that there's a path being opened and we can lean into it and we don't have to have it all sorted out. And so what you're reflecting to me sounds exactly like what I'm noticing in myself and the people I work with.
Yeah, no coincidence. So let's make it personal. What's the cost? What's the cost of that false humility of being the smartest guy in the room, but pretending that you're not?
The biggest, well, there's lots of costs, but one of the big ones is we can't really be responsible for impact. So we leave people, some examples would be like leaving people around us feeling dumb and not being able to own that we're creating that. Because of course we're like, well, that's not my fault. They're just being a moron. Yeah, well, you're kind of putting that into the space, buddy. We don't ever.
So in other words, people feel dumb around you, but they don't even know why they feel dumb around you because you're just trying to be one of them.
Yeah, or you're intentionally making them feel dumb, but not consciously doing it. So you can't see it. So it's opaque to you.
Got it.
Yeah.
So for you, how did you start to notice that was something that you wanted to change? Like why was that a problem for you?
Well, I think that was part of the trap. Was I was so smart, like our ego has all access to our mental faculties. So my ego was every bit as smart as I was and smarter. So it was wrapping me up in it. And so I don't think I even really knew that I wanted to change things. But what I can tell you in hindsight was that I was abusing substances and doing so at my job at the time, which was not at all what I'm committed to, out of integrity with my purpose, my mission on this planet, who I want to be as a man. But it was giving me like reprieve from the utter boredom and lack of fulfillment that I was feeling inside of a job where I controlled all of the variables so that nothing unsafe or vulnerable or risky ever happened. So I was totally safe in my aquarium and desperate for some way of getting out of it without really realizing that.
So instead of opening up your heart and looking at all these inner things, substances were a quick fix.
Yeah, and I would try to open my heart, but I would do it through the cells of a spreadsheet. So I'd be like, okay, I need to like hug my wife 5 times this week, and I'll track that in a spreadsheet so I create intimacy. Like, so loopy.
Absolutely. So tell me about your shift. Tell me about the journey.
It started when a man who I owe a great debt of gratitude to, and I'd signed up for this training. This was when I first started to become a coach. I talked to someone. I was like, wow, this job sounds amazing. I think this is what I want to do. I found myself into a really intensive training program. And at the very start, their model was grab the blind spot from behind your head and stick it in front of your face and invite you to look at it and speak to what's possible for you on this planet, but also speak to everything you're putting in the way of that. And so I really saw, for the first time, I saw the complete lack of intimacy that existed in my life. I saw not just a lack of intimacy with my wife, who I love very much, and and is an amazing woman, but also a complete lack of intimacy with friends, with the world at large. And most damning, maybe damning's not the right word, but like most problematic was a complete lack of intimacy with myself. So I didn't even feel what I felt. I thought about what I felt. And then I thought about what I was thinking. Isn't that interesting that I'm analyzing my sadness right now? I wonder why that is. And so on and so forth.
Right. So for me, people talk about, how does someone know to work with you, Mark? How does someone, and I talk about people in midlife often because something has to happen. Something has to not work to be willing to go into that uncomfortableness. To have your blind spot like that shown and put in your face is painful. right? And this growth thing that we keep talking about, that I push people towards, is so painful and so scary. It's the reason we didn't look at it in the first place. That what's behind us has to be scarier and more painful often to move us forward, right? So
Yeah.
now something happened to you to tell you I need to look at this, and now you're faced with this, but you don't know how you're going to get through it. You're just in it. What's
Yeah.
it like to be in it but not know what's on the other side of that?
Incredibly frustrating. And like a lot of thinking, right? Because whenever we cross the threshold into a new way of being, the old ways become hyper pronounced because we're trying to do everything that we used to do to get ourselves over that threshold, ironically, which serves to hold us in it. So for me, there was a great deal of thinking, a great deal of frustration, a great deal of resentment, of feeling stupid, feeling that other people that were pointing to the path for me didn't have any clue what they were talking about and were just messing with me and trying to one up me or something like that.
Right. So you didn't feel like the people who were showing this to you they didn't feel like they were on your side.
In fact, I was building a case against them.
Yes. I watched it real time. And, but what I also watched real time, and this is, the two things that I see in moving forward, the two ingredients in growing and moving through these. One is earnestness. That was a great sound effect. We will be editing that out right here. Okay. All right. So the two things that I see that are really essential for growth in any way is earnestness, earnestness for the mission, and honesty. And that's what I thought your tea times were really exquisite, because I watched you decide to be as vulnerable and transparent and honest as you could possibly muster in front of hundreds of people, right? Every Friday. And you would talk about topics that most people would want to crawl into a hole under, but you wanted your earnestness, you wanted out of that box so badly. And you wanted to connect with people and make an impact on people, both connection and intimacy that you talked about earlier, and make an impact on people so bad that you were just willing to do anything. And you did it. And it took years. But again, nobody's ever cooked, nobody's ever done. But I saw you cross a threshold, right? To where it's no longer, I can't see the goal, I can't see the gifts, I can't see all that gold, to now you're experiencing it. Would you say that's true?
Yeah. And I would say I feel like I've been seeing the fruit all along. Like the nuance I would add is I wasn't sharing all of that stuff in order to become intimate. I was sharing all of that stuff because that was being intimate. So every step along the way.
Great distinction.
Yeah.
So it's funny because you were being what you were wanting.
Yes, 100%.
So it didn't even have to be a destination. It was a place to come from. As our friend Rich Litvin would say, it's not a place to get to, it's a place to come from.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, I had to drop the place to get to in order to just be in the moment. And that's often the work of leadership, is there's nowhere to get to. There's just whatever is here right now in this moment.
Mm. How did that change the way you work, and how did that change about the way you go about your business? Because again, we were talking earlier about being a really good blue collar worker, rolling up your sleeves and getting things done, and then you talked about phases of how you change the way you work.
So ultimately, all of this I credit to deepening my relationship with trust and with spirit, and because working to get somewhere is, you could argue, and I might argue in this moment, is ultimately about not trusting that it'll come forward, or that what you have is enough, or that you are enough, whatever it is. I have to get over there because over there things are better. And a lot of the work has been letting that kind of settle and just trusting, whatever, there's this person that's reached out to me. letting go of whether or not they're going to be a client or can afford me or are the kind of leader I want to work, any of that stuff, all of that, just shoo it away and really trust like this is the person that was brought to me. So I'm going to do the work I'm going to support them however I can support them right now. And from that, yeah, sometimes they become clients. Sometimes they don't. But what really shifts is the experience throughout that is way more fun because I don't have to worry about where it's going to end up. I just get to revel in the present moment and be with what's showing up. That's a way better way to live life for me.
How'd you get there? How do you help your people to get there from that blue collar, I got to strive, I got to work, I got to make things happen, to I'm going to let things happen and I'm going to be present in the moment?
I'm laughing because the real answer is like I got there with a lot of struggle and fear, meaning that it's scary to let go of all of the strategizing and the cells of a spreadsheet because they look so discrete and right. And I can see the path and it's all planned out. And so I don't have to trust. And the thing is that there's a shaman I work with, and she was telling me the way to build trust is through the archetype of the fool. And what that is a willingness to stand on the rug, knowing it's going to be pulled out from under you, and then to get up and stand on the rug again. And so really, it was not about, I'm going to trust provided I can see how this is all going to go. Mm. I'm going to trust, and I'm going to be willing for everything to fall apart. And I'm going to trust that even in it falling apart, I can continue forward. And I'm going to get back up and trust again and dust myself off and keep going down that path.
Frightening.
Yeah, it's scary. It's much safer not to do that. But again, leadership and coaching are not games of being safe.
It's funny because I talk to a lot of coaches, and the way their coaching programs go, and the way it's very regimented and it is safe, because this is give me your 3 objectives. Okay, we'll work for 6 months. How are we doing on our objectives? Have we changed those behaviors, right? And have we gotten there? And what I know you and I do is on a much more what's the word you just used? Messy, vulnerable. Who the fuck knows?
Yes,
level.
Totally. And I still think there's value sometimes in having like a goal that people are moving towards, so that we're not just coaching around in a circle all day long, because we want to create tangible results too. You and I both love those, I think. So.
It's funny because I do the same thing. I write a coaching contract. We talk about the behaviors that we would like to see.
Yeah.
But the road doesn't ever look like the road.
Yes. And in fact, often looks like it's going the other direction for a while. Yeah.
So it's crazy. So tell me about your life. So actually, I'm still trying to pull a thread out of you that I'm not really sure. It may be clear, but for me, of the visceralness of the journey, because you sound like such a warm West Coast evolved man. Right. I know where you came from. You know where you came from. I know where I came from. Right. And people describe me as grounded and Zen and all that stuff. And, I've only known myself to be Ricochet Rabbit. Right. Mm. But, a decade's worth of really hard work produces this. But you really do specialize in working with people like you were on that continuum. So how do you talk to them and show them that there's something else for them?
That's a good question. Let me just sit with that for one moment. I think, one of the things I notice about my journey and my people is we're really reliable to get done what needs to get done. And we don't really have any access to what we want to get done or what we want, period. So we're very focused on here's what I have to do. After that's all done, I can do what I want. And so most of my people they've got all the trappings of success, because if you get everything that needs to get done, which you can never fully do, but if you do that, you'll make a lot of money and you'll never really get what you want in life, but you can get proxies for it. so you can get a nice car, get a beautiful partner, you can have a
Slow down
beautiful
there.
house.
So you may not even let yourself know what you want. You may not even know what you want. You may not get what you want, even if you know it, but you'll get proxies for it. And
Yes.
that's what the big house, the car, and all the toys are. They're proxies for what we really want. Not
Yes.
saying that you can't have a sports car, not saying that you can't have a big, beautiful house, but you need to know that those are just toys, and the thing that you really want is something else.
Yeah. And yes, 100%. You want me to say more on that?
Go for it, because I'm just sitting here with an epiphany of just how beautifully you illustrated that for me. Because I'll tell you why. This my secret reason for asking that question is I'm always afraid, that when we're talking, especially when I'm talking to another coach, but when I'm talking, that I haven't convinced the people that I'm trying to get to, which are the people who have the big houses, the cars, and life seems to be working by proxy, which is just such a beautiful thing you just said. Life is working by proxy. And maybe marriage isn't supposed to be the be all and end all. Maybe marriage isn't supposed to be intimate and wonderful. We just raise our kids and we tolerate each other. Maybe my health isn't supposed to be. Maybe my spiritual life, maybe my enjoyment of all this doesn't necessarily need to be uh, anything more, because look at me. I've got the car, I've got the wife, I've got the kids, I got the thing, I got, so I checked all the boxes. And it isn't until someone slows down enough to go, yeah, I'm not fucking happy. I'm
Yeah.
just, I'm just not okay. And that's where, when we don't listen to that, it's just not enough. It's just not right. I'm just missing the mark. That's where depression comes in. And now we need some pills. That's where addictions come in. That's where illness comes in, and heart disease and again, the main reason why I do what I do is guys who look like me are killing themselves in record numbers. We can't handle the adversity. We can't handle what life throws at us, and it's terrifying to me. So the reason I ask that question is, again, because I want to that secret key for someone to unlock, for people who have it all or seem to have it all by proxy, to know that there's something more, and the thing that they're looking for really does exist, and they can have it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the distinctions I like is the distinction between having a life you love, you truly are in love with, and having a life that you can describe in great detail why you like it a lot. So most of my people, they can exquisitely describe all of the reasons why they should like their life a lot. And it's exactly like the difference between like and love. They sound similar. They blah 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 blah, but like you can't cross over. You can't go from having a ton of stuff you like, and maybe if I just add 3 more cars I like a lot, to, oh my god, I love this, like getting out of bed and screaming and being thrilled with happiness and all of that stuff. It's asymptotic. You can't cross that threshold.
Mm. And so what is it? So I think I know what it is, but what is it do you think people really want, that they're building the proxies for?
Well, I think it's that they want, like there isn't any one thing. I wouldn't say. I would say for my people, they want a deep experience of intimacy, of connection, of fulfillment, of really feeling like they're having the impact they're here on this planet to make, rather than proxies for all of those sort of things.
Great. So for me, again, it's to feel the experience for me, it's the experience of being alive, because
Mm.
I'm not saying, and we're not saying that this is a way to get to a life of no problems, of no challenges, of no pain, of no nothing. Like, it's, for me, it's a way of viscerally being alive, and being
Yes.
alive in relationship with connection and intimacy, being alive with work, with impact and legacy, right? Being, that piece is what I think we're all longing for. Is we're here. Why can't we experience being alive? I think it's why surfers surf, because while they're surfing, they're feeling alive. They're in the moment. They feel it, right? Then they get back on shore, not sure what they feel. They just can't wait to get back out in the ocean to feel that. And that's what I think. I think that's what you and I are talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like, here's a really simple example of that, where people often want to go on wild travels, like journeys throughout the world, go to some exquisite foreign place. And the reason is because what they're really craving in their life is an experience of life as an adventure. They're craving an experience of adventure and exploration and all of that stuff, which includes some risk and blah, 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 blah. And they're thinking by traveling, they will get that experience, which they're probably right. But what's being missed there is they're creating their life like, well, I get to have the experience I'm craving 2 weeks out of every year. Or if you're really fortunate, all the time that's not spent during your 4-hour work week. But it's still not enough, because what you're craving is an overall experience of life that is adventurous or heart open, or, whatever it happens to be. And that can only be gotten by going deep and inwards, as opposed to trying to get enough of the circumstances of your life lined up to create that.
Cool. Where do I start? Give me a starting point. You've convinced me. Where do I start?
Have a conversation with a coach is always the best thing. And the reason for that is because, especially for really smart people, your ego is so smart. So it'll take whatever book I give you, it'll take any video that I give you, it'll take anything like that, and it'll wrap it inwards and use it for its own nefarious purposes. And talking to someone who can create some altitude from your intelligence, that's what will make the difference. Doesn't mean you have to pay a ton of money or anything. It just means be willing to have a conversation.
Cool. Love it. For me, it's get a piece of paper and a pen. Slow down, cup of coffee, cup of tea, and write. So that's my first step always. So I love it. So tell me, what are you excited about? What's in your world that people can go find you and be equally excited about?
One of the things I'm really excited about right now is the spiritual journey I'm on, which is crazy. If I had told you, like, if we played this interview 10 years ago, that Adam would not have, his head would have exploded.
3-4 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. Would have been a smaller explosion 3-4 years ago, but yeah, still an explosion. So I've been doing a lot of work with a shaman, and I'm really excited about the power and the medicine that comes from sitting in ceremony. And that can be ceremony with plant medicines, which I think are really powerful, but it can also just be sitting in ceremony, period. Like, you can sit and really bring a lot of ritual to a space and a lot of diligence, and it's miraculous what can come forward from that. And so I'm bringing more and more of that into my work with the people I do, because I think that provides new access. Super excited about that work. What's one other thing that I can share that I'm really excited about? I'm really excited about the power. Bay, my wife and I run an event called the Intensive every year, and I get so excited about the power that becomes available when you bring a bunch of people into a room and let that magic unfold and create transformation and let them be with everything that shows up when we have to be with people that aren't like ourselves.
Can they find information on that on your website?
There's many ways people can. So my website is a good one, adamquiney.com. Facebook is always a good place to connect with me, because a lot of my art is there. Those are the two best places.
So we're gonna put those links and the link to your podcast on the show notes, so people don't have to remember it, write it down, because they're probably driving. So Adam, thank you for sharing your heart and your soul and your journey. It's exquisite, and I'm just blessed to be on that journey. This is where you get to say thank you to everybody who's listening.
I was just waiting for you to pause. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone listening.
I haven't figured out any of this yet. 160 episodes in, and I haven't figured out any of it. So to everybody else who's still with us, I just so appreciate you. I love you, and have a great rest of the day.